to know. Alright, so here are some questions you want to avoid when you do your observation and contextual inquiry. First is to ask your participants what they will do or would do or would like or would want. Right. So sometimes your clients and your customers they cannot give you exactly how they are going to behave, how they are going to feel, how whether or not they would like or not like exactly to your future idea, because that's kind of imagination idea. So you can imagine that if you give these kind of questions, always you'll get a positive feedback. They say, oh yeah, good. Right. If you ask them to predict something, even we designers, we researchers, we are very bad in predicting something. But so you can imagine your participants, they will be very bad at predicting their preferences of a particular service. So kind of you have to avoid asking this kind of question. Right. But there are some strategies if you really want to understand people's idea about particular idea, but which does not exist. Right. But you really want to get their feedback. Right. So in that situation, how do you get the information from them? Do you have any idea? Okay, we will save that for afternoon. Since afternoon, I'm going to show you a talk that I get from the internet. And after you listen to a talk, I think everyone will get an answer. Okay, this is another way to keep students in the workshop. Alright, so second thing you want to avoid is to ask your client to imagine a scenario, right, which does not really exist. Right, so it can be anything. It really depends on the time and environment, or whether or not the participants, if they are hurried or not hurried doing something, they might give you any kind of answers. Right, so just avoid asking your participant to imagine a scenario. And also you want to avoid asking a particular service feature, or certain service feature does not exist. Right. So it's very related to the second and the first one. Right. Right. Just try to avoid asking your person to imagine something and to imagine or predict something or imagine a particular scenario, or try to avoid asking how often they do things. Since people have bad memory. So sometimes if you ask this question at this time, people will say, give you a number, but sometimes ask another time, they will give you another number. So don't ask them to do estimation of how they do things. Right. So, but if you want to ask this kind of question, right, just don't try to identify a particular number, like how often they do things. Maybe just give it some category of things. Right, just ask them to pick. Right. And so, what do you observe and note? That if you still remember, yesterday we talked about the 5 principles of service design. And first, user-centered. Second, co-creative. Third is sequencing, right? Sequencing here, and fourth evidence or evidencing and holistic, right? So 5 principles. So since you are dealing with service design, so service sequencing would be important to you since you want to identify touch points, right? So here are things you definitely want to record in your notes. So first is their goal. So when users, they come to a service, what's their goal? And you have to understand physical space, sequence, and the work and task, and their behavior, intentions, and what the words users use, and tools they use, and also other people and how they collaborate with together. So sometimes the service does not only involve one person, sometimes involve multiple people, employees. So how they collaborate or interact with each other. So the things you have to understand, you have to also record, and you have to understand some service providers, their objective, they have some cultural influences or some culture they really want to implement some cultural brand identity in a particular service, right? So those things you cannot change, but people may have their idea about that. So those all the things you have to put in your notes. And here are some strategies that when you're taking a note. First, be silent. Like when you're taking a note, don't speak. So taking notes, just take notes. Right? Okay, take notes and also speak. Do you think you can do a good job taking the notes? Right? Maybe not, right? Okay. But some people can do, but normal person cannot do two texts perfectly at one time. Right? So when you're taking notes, don't speak. And the second is comprehensiveness. It means that any piece of information which is important to your service design projects, you have to record every of them. Right? And here, time, since when you're taking notes, right? Since there's so many things happen in a sheet, and you take notes at here and there and there and there. So when you go home, it's hard for you to track, right? Since the sequence is important to service design, so you have to record touch point in a time order, like this particular time, and the second touch point or second thing happen, you have to go below that, right? So you have to record it in a time sequential way, so that when you get back to your notes, then it will be easy for you to come up with, to design or to develop a consumer journey map. Because it can represent touch point and the things happen. Right. So those are things you have to be aware of when you are doing observation. Okay, so I just show you since the workshop. So I have to show you that what are the things you have to do in the notes, the real notes, but it's just a fake note. But I just show you a layout regarding what information you put in a note. So those are things you have to put. So it's time, participants, observer, and location. So those are important information for you to put in your notes, right? So that whenever you go home and maybe 10 days later, you can always track back to the notes and you can understand where the observation take place, when, and who is the observer, and also who are the participants, right? Since in a team, maybe different people, they observe at different times. So if you have any particular questions, you have to identify the particular observer and kind of asking what's going on for a particular problem in his or in her notes. Right. And also location is also important. And sometimes people take observations, do observations at here, some people doing at there. Right. So sometimes if you find discrepancies between the two notes, maybe it just was due to the locations where they do the observations. Okay. So that's my recommendation, but you don't need to do that. On the left-hand side or on the right-hand side, you kind of divide it two parts. The one part you just record touch points, every touch point, or any facts. Like it doesn't matter. You can draw, or you just take notes of a particular touch point. So sometimes the things happen so quick, right? So sometimes you cannot write immediately. It can draw, right? Yeah. And from here, the right-hand side or another side, it doesn't matter which way, right? On the right-hand side, you can write your interpretations, right? Since you are the person doing the observation, so you observe a particular thing happen, then you can put down why it happened, your interpretation of a particular touch point, why it happened, how it happens, and what's the contribution, what are factors contributing to this particular touch point. Just write it down here. And since your interpretation may be preliminary, since this can be your first observation, but maybe you will develop more and more confidence or more and more idea, knowledge about a particular best service. So you may change interpretation here, right? But it's important you keep the record of this, right? So they can always track back to interpretation here. But if you don't have this part, 10 days later, you will not, sometimes you will forget about the touch points, what's going on for particular points. And also if you have interpretation, sometimes if you have 4 people working in the same team, you can compare about the same touch points with your interpretations. Right? Sometimes people, they capture some important insights which you doesn't capture. So this kind of format that will facilitate the group discussion and facilitate that you can modify a little bit of your observation for your next observation. So this kind of formats, but just my formats, you can have your own formats or some. It really depends on which way you feel the most comfortable in your team. But that's my recommendation. So just this is a format you can use. Okay, so after you finish your field notes, right? So you have 3 artifacts and 3 outcomes. The one is you may have a rough note since things happens that takes place so quick and you cannot finish taking all the notes, all the information that you needed, and so you may have some rough notes. That's first, but you have to generate the second one after your observations. Since right after your observation, then you still have a lot of memory things happening, right? So you can still you still have the memory, right? So for a lot of blanks that you didn't fill in, just try to fill them out as detailed as possible for your notes, right? So the second artifact, I think you have to do that. And third, try to include a summary for your observation. You're doing survey design projects, and maybe you can just provide a few sentences summarizing a particular participant or particular observation, so that this will be important and useful if you have 10 or 20 participants. So when you're doing data analysis, when you get back to your original notes, you can easily get an idea about what happened for this particular observation. Right. So at the end of the contextual inquiry, you have the first one, and I hope you can generate the second and third. Right. So the second and third will be important for your future data analysis. Right. But they take time. Sometimes people, after conducting observations, oh, I feel very tired, I don't want to touch the notes anymore. So they just leave it away and they just do whatever they want to do. So, but that's not right, because people forget things easily. Right. And so here I want to introduce a technique which you can use for your observation. And that technique is called critical insert technique. So here is a definition of critical insert technique. But you are not necessary to use it, but I just introduced this technique which will be useful when you conduct your observation. So actually critical incident technique is a method used to collect direct observations of events or touch point in the case of survey design or human behavior that have a critical impact on the design of a service or one phenomenon, or have critical impact in explaining a problem or a status. So here are some examples here. So in survey design, a critical incident can be a touch point or a problem that could lead to customer complaints. Right. But in survey design, you can have your own critical incidents, which really reflect your project, because people have different projects. So before you conduct your observations, I will encourage you to define your critical incidents, what it is for your particular project, so that everyone will get a common understanding about the things they will have to look for, will have to record for their observation. And in touch point design, so that touch point, they are physical artifacts, right? So a critical incident can be an usability problem or an inconvenience that will lead to user dissatisfaction. Or in e-learning website event or something, then it can be a situation or event that could cause learning inattention. So the critical incidents, it really varies across different projects. Right? But I'll encourage you to define it at the beginning of your survey design projects, and then use it for your contextual inquiry or contextual design thing. So those are examples. Any question about critical incident technique? Okay, so what you observe and know. So actually you have seen this, right? But so you have to be aware that the critical incident will happen any place at here, right? But they are all contributing to a service that you try to design. So just be aware of that. Critical incidents can happen in the environments, in a touch point, in a person's interaction, can be everywhere. So I encourage you to define it at the beginning, so that when you do observation, you will know, okay, so I'm particularly interested in a particular critical incident, and I record it. And other things may be important to other projects, but you don't have to do it or record it. So at the end of your observation, and you have so many critical incidents, then you can use this kind of table and to help you identify your solution of your design. So you can record frequency of the critical incidents, of particular critical incidents. Then you can categorize them, like maybe these 10 touch points are associated with pre-service phase, and these 5 touch points associated with the actual service phase, right? So you can categorize them, but there's no formal way to categorize them, but you can discuss it with your team, right? So you categorize them, and they can also have a general category to cover some subcategories, right? And you can, at the frequency here, just give you some idea about how often the incident happen, so that if the number is very high, so it might deserve you to pay more attention to that. And since this is not a quantitative study, so sometimes a frequency 1 does not mean it is not important, just because you didn't do like a comprehensive random sampling, right? But so sometimes even the frequency is 1, but it represents a very important thing that you have to resolve, right? So, but definitely if the frequency is high, really deserve your attention to resolve the problem with that critical incident. Right. So the frequency just gives you some idea of information about what you have to focus on. Right. But just be aware, if the frequency is low, does not mean it's not important. It just means that the particular observation that occurs only once, maybe you conduct another observation, the frequency will be higher. Right. But again, it really depends on your research questions. Right. So sometimes if you observe maybe 100 critical incidents, but you cannot resolve all of them, right? So you have to pick the most important category of most important critical incident to resolve. And so it's just give you a methods how you organize the data. Since the observations, there's so many things can happen, right? And it's just one approach that you can help you identify your design solution. And here, sometimes you'll forget about what the critical incident represents. So you can just write interpretations briefly to a particular category, the meaning of the particular category. All right. So yesterday we said building rapport with your participants is very important. Right. So here are some strategies that you can use to build a rapport between you and your participants. The first is paying homage to their routines. So what does it mean is that you have to let your participants know you're trying. It kind of reflects the questions that Dr. Ho, right? Mentioned in the morning. So that what time is a good time? Yeah. So you have to ask your person what time would be a good time for you to visit them. So if you go there when they are busy, then you can imagine how much time they can allocate to you, right? So sometimes if you go there, they are busy. They say, "Oh, I only have 5 minutes." Then it's hard for you to conduct effective observation. And so also if you're trying to do observations for construction worker or a nurse, and maybe just 1 hour before they get off their work, then maybe it's not a good time, right? Yeah. So you have to talk with your participants and figure out a good time for you to visit them. So that's important. And second thing, you just establish what you already have in common with people. Right. So just kind of don't let them know you are like you're trying to do a research to help them, but you are not trying to do a research just for the benefit of your personal projects. Right. So they see, okay, so they'll understand the thing that you do and their contribution is important to the society or to resolve particular problems that is common among people. So they will be more willing to join or to provide feedback to your service, or be more willing to let you know their problems or their challenges they have with a particular service. And third, you try to help people out. What does it mean is that since you are trying to build rapport between you and your participants, and you can say to them, okay, so try to reduce your relationship, build a close relationship with you and your participant. You can say, oh, I have some coupons, and maybe you can share it and try to help them out. And or if your person are a female or a male, like a female, maybe housewife or something, you say, oh, I have some coupons, and if your person, they're students, you can just kind of try to use different ways to try to let them think that you are with them and you understand them, So that's another approach that you can use. And also be humble. And what does it mean is that when you're interacting with your participants, don't try to act that you understand everything. So if you say, okay, yeah, I see, I know, then they'll say, okay, what? Then you know everything. Why you come to me? Right. Try to be humble. That it's a good strategy. So those are some strategies we can use to build a relationship. And we are really doing some actual observations. Here are some strategies you can use. That you have to be aware of, or we can use the strategy you use that can help you conduct a real successful observation. And first, you have to act naive. So you previously I said, just don't try to act like you know everything. But during your real observation, you have to try to be like a novice. You don't know everything. So your Python will allow you to make mistakes, will allow you to ask stupid questions. Right. But you have to be interested. A novice. No, I'm interested in everything, but I'm naive. I'm novice. I don't know everything. So whenever you ask any kind of questions, maybe stupid to them, but they will understand you since they think you don't know everything, so they'll try their best to answer all of your questions. So that's one of tactic they can use during your observation. And second, what do we tell participants? And I think we already covered this previously. So when you do your observations in the field and users or clients, they will change your behavior. Right. So what do you tell your participants? Then during observations, you just don't try to give much detail about your project to your participants. Otherwise, they will change their behavior. Right. And become an obtrusive part of the scene. Right. Sometimes you have to be aware of the dress. That you have to dress properly. If you are interviewing, if you are going to a school, and if you wear the jeans or with some casual dress and maybe not proper, and if you go to a construction field, if you dress like this, people feel like you are very weird. Then you have to dress very casually, so they will feel more comfortable of you being there for a certain amount of time. Right. So you have to become an obtrusive part of the scene, so that I think just maybe another person comes into the field, people will not identify you, which is different from the scene. Then that would be good. Right. And also there are some difficult field relationships here, especially females. And if you're a female, and sometimes you will do observations, and some advantages that some study shows that the females, the participants, they are more open-minded to female observers. But there are some disadvantage. Because if your participant is a male, maybe they are more interested in your personal information than your study or your research. So some relationship you have to deal with. They are difficult, but sometimes they're easy. So when you're trying to do observations, those are the things you may encounter. Right, so I have to be aware of that. And sometimes during observations, people would kind of drift into generosities and abstractions about a particular problem. So if that things happen, you have to pull them back and say, okay, what do you say about something? You have to ask them to clarify. Of course, they have no idea what they just said is really important to your study or to your project. So sometimes they will just give you some abstract idea about something, and you have to ask and then clear them out. And if something is important to you, just you have to let your person know that's important and kind of draw their attention to something you're interested in. So those are strategies you can use when you conduct observations. Okay, so the last one is some good methods will lead you part of the answer. So when you are in, there are some good participants. What do I mean by good participants? That when your first time you approach your participants, and actually from your first conversation, you will know if they are good participants or bad participants. Good participants, you can see their attitude from your first conversation. You see they will be very helpful to you. They try to be open-minded to your stuff. But some people, their attitude is not very good, and you can see from the attitude from your very beginning. So if you can tell your participants, the people you talk to is not a good participants, maybe don't try a lot of time to convince that person to join your project, because sometimes it's going to waste your time, and even though they agree, they will not provide you as much information as you want to get. So be aware that some people that are good participants, if they're good participants, try to keep them. Bad participants sometimes just let it go. Right. And good setting is important, and good timing. So good setting is important is that since we're doing contextual inquiry, so it would be great we conduct observations in their real service environment. So sometimes if your person say to you, okay, what you ask them, when do they have time? Is I'll have time, maybe 6 o'clock, but I'll get home. So I'll meet at my home. So the setting does not reflect the context of the service environment, right? So it will be not good for you to conduct observations or interviews for that home setting. So definitely a good setting is important. It would be good that you conduct your observations in the place where the service happens. And good timing is important. Like what I just said, just try to make appointment beforehand and figure out a good time to meet your participants. And sometimes your participants, they'll forget, and you have to remind them. But sometimes, even though you remind them, then they'll still will not show up. So a lot of things can happen, right? So just be aware of that. And also, I think you already know about this. Like your participants, they are not always there for your study or your research. So don't try to act that if you go there, and they will definitely help you. Right. So when you go there, try to provide some incentives to them, and try to be humble, like maybe T-shirt or coffee mugs or some money to buy your time. Right. But I don't know what it's going to be in Korea. And some people, they are very helpful, and they are willing to spare the time for your study. Yeah, but in the US, right, we have to pay them big money for doing a study. Like, I think if you are a student in the US, sometimes we pay 1 hour $10, $15. Right, but the industry, since they have more money, they'll pay 35, 45 per hour. Right. So if you give them a big money or give maybe a gift card or something, and like if your customers, they are students, and if you give them convenience store gift card, okay, that's good, since they use it all the time, then it will be very likely they will say yes to join your study. Right. So you have to think about this. So they are not always there for your study. They do not have you do not have the right to have them to join your study, right? So you have to think about this. Okay, so here is another thing about retrospective contextual inquiry. What does it mean that, so if the service that you are providing is associated with a particular thing or event that do not happen all the time. So for that case, it would be very difficult for you to conduct observations. Like for example, if you want to develop like earthquake reaction service plan or something, but it would be difficult for you to observe people's behavior during an earthquake, right? Since it does not happen all the time, right? So for that kind of situation, you will do a retrospective contextual inquiry, right? It's very similar to interview, but since contextual inquiry would care more about the environment and also the artifact tools. So here are some questions that you can ask. So you just ask the participants what they have done in the past and what they will do in the future. Like when the same thing happened again, what would you do? Since they already have some experience about that. And you also invite them to bring artifacts, documents, or tools that they might use when a particular event happens, since it does not happen all the time. So you have to ask them to bring the things with them. And also you have to repeatedly query them about what happened, step by step. Right. Since we do not have a physical setting for you to observe, so it's important that they can describe you in detail what's their reactions and what do they do step by step in a particular event or a situation, so that you can get a picture about how to design a service for the event or situation. Okay, so here are some of the contextual inquiry process. Right. So first you have to have a research question. I highlighted in red. That's most important part, because that will influence or drive your direction of your observations. So what you will try to observe will influence by the research question. Right, so this question is important, and then when you try to conduct contextual inquiry, first you introduce yourself, obtain informed consent, get permissions, explain your study focus, and here try to establish relationship here. And I think it's important from my experience, you don't proceed unless you think you have a good relationship with your participants, right? If you feel comfortable, then you can proceed. But you don't feel comfortable, never proceed to conduct contextual inquiry. Otherwise, you will collect the data you collect will not be useful for your projects. So that's why I put like 3 right here. So here is important because you have to give many information, much information from the participants. They are the sources for you to use for your design, right? So if the source has some problem, then your design will not be a good design. So relationship is important. And then once you feel comfortable, then you can proceed. Then you can do some transition for the users that, okay, here's the time that I want to begin. Just let them know, okay, for now I will start to do observations on you. So let them know when is the time that you start observing them, and then you take notes and follow your focus. Then the focus is here. And interpret and ask questions. And also get validation. And here get validation is that whenever you find some important piece of information that you are interested in, but you are not quite sure about what it is important you verify it with the participants. And then the wrap up. And wrap up is also important, so you try to summarize the findings and thank your participants. This is important. If you don't thank them, sometimes if you have questions, you call them back, they will not answer your question. Right, and some leave the door open for future meetings. So here are some of the steps, process for conducting contextual inquiry. Okay, so after contextual inquiry, now you go home, get home. Like I say, you have to meet with your team members and discuss about the artifacts that we just mentioned for contextual inquiry. The contextual inquiry, 3 outcomes, right? We have a summary, we have rough notes, and we have to generate like 4 details, right? And so when you get back maybe to the school or lab, you discuss with your findings, with your partners, or with your colleagues, and this process is very important, right? But I don't know how many students will do this, but this is important because we want to make sure the data we collected or our interpretation are reliable. Sometimes you ignore something, or sometimes maybe you didn't catch up something, right? But your colleagues, they can, from your data or from their observation experiences, they can give you some feedback on that. So that will help you conduct your next observation. And here you have to number each node, so participant 1 and node number 10. So that would be easy for you to get back to particular participants for particular nodes. Right, since sometimes one person may have 10 pages or 100 pages or 5 pages of notes. Right, so you have to give a number to each node, give a number to the participants, so that you can easily get back to a particular service touch point. And this would be software that people normally use in the industry, but I think in academia people use this. This is Moray. I don't know, maybe you have the software, right? Moray. Okay, so this would be, so ideally people will have video, right? They can see there's some lines at bottom, and you can see people can create different labels and tags. So different label and tags, you can see there. You can create a network, and it will show the time, and you can put some comments. Right. So this is what we do in the company. Right. So we'll have cameras and record the whole behavior. Right. But you are doing field research. If your person allow you to take videos, you can still like record it and do analysis later on. Right. So sometimes if you don't have time to take notes, then you can record the whole video, right? Yeah. So, like for example, if you feel your project is about emergency room, so sometimes if you follow them all the time, then that will kind of influence or bother the nurse when they try to deliver some healthcare treatments. So, in that case, they might allow you to take a video, right, to record. So this will help you to do some future analysis. Right. Okay, so this is kind of summary about what I covered today, this morning. So how do we deal with the following? The first, users may be shy or even suspicious. Yeah, so how do you deal with this? You already have a big picture about how to do observation, what to collect, how to interact with your participants before and after and during your observation. Yeah, so users may be shy.
Skip. Before and after.
Yeah. Yeah. So just building relationship, let them feel more comfortable with your presence.
There's a lot of things to do, icebreaking.
Yeah. Right. And so sometimes user does not want you to see and make errors or mistakes. Yeah. So in this case, you can say, okay, so it is okay you make errors. Like I have seen a lot of people making blah errors. So it's okay you can make errors. So it's not exam or something, but just show your natural behavior to us. It's important to our research. And so sometimes users do differently. Right? So you already know the answer, how to deal with it. Right? And the last will be you collect enormous amount of data. Right. So how will you deal with it? I think I already covered it. Like critical instance techniques, touch points, summarizing them, and organizing your data. So here are some the things that you have to deal with after contextual inquiry.